Are we in, is it possible we're in February again or something? May last year was gorgeous. Neil, don't start with the weather already. You're like 10 seconds in. I know, but here we are in May, middle of May practically. I found a National Trust reserve to walk around today. No dogs, no cyclists, no lycra-clad maniacs. Oh, some wonderful pictures though. Look at this. It's a tree just been felled here, but the length of it, as you look along the length, I'm going to try and get something that, hang on, I'm going to put you in my pocket straight away, right at the start. I'm working with the X Pro 1 today. Let's see if I can get the perspective of this tree looking along it. F5.6, 1/2/5, ISO 250. It's recently been raining, so we do have some wonderful greens, as I like to say every single time. Kind of makes up for the rain, really. Just rescue you from my pocket. Yeah, so we're on National Trust property, which I thought was a tad quieter than last week's walk around Oxford, which was fun though, wasn't it? Did you enjoy that? It was a bit different, wasn't it? Oh look, car's not going to be happy. Plenty of mud here this week. Welcome to
Photography Daily, the Friday photo walk.
Well, it's back close to home this week, the show of the week with your emails, your direct messages, your comments left on the website show pages about the programmes you've heard and the photographs you make. In between your mails and comments, some inspiration too from past guests. And of course, as ever, you can see the pictures on the accompanying show page, which is linked to on the app you're listening to right now, just down there. Look. Unless you're driving, of course. In case, eyes on the road, please. And before we start, here's a question. Is there a piece of camera kit in a cupboard, in one of those camera bags you've not looked in for a while, or tucked into a drawer, a lens, a flash, a camera that you just haven't used lately? For some reason, you're holding on to it, but you don't know why, or you'd forgotten you had it. Well, now is the time to turn that old kit into cash. If you are in the US, Europe or UK and you can spare just a few moments, because that's all it takes, go to mpb.com. That's mpb.com and sell it using the simple process on the front page. You'll end up with cash that you can either pocket or of course trade on the site for kit you'd much rather have instead. Right then, boots on, earbuds in, let's walk. I'm not sure whether you can hear it, but there's lovely birds in the background here, walking through a very dense woodland, which is lovely. A place in Berkshire called Wootton Hill, and it's not so much a hill but a woods though, so I'm a bit confused about that. But in the background you can hear the A34 bypass, which is not quite music to my ears. I'm not quite sure whether the light rumble of that is coming across and whether I can turn away from it. I mean, there's apparently, is it 100 acres or something here? So I should be able to really turn away from the traffic. Let's take this path. I should have done what 3 words so I could find my way back again. Right, I want to start this week with a few things that I've seen in the Facebook group of Photography Daily. Have you joined yet? No? Why not? It's a wonderful bunch of people in there, and yeah, it's not like one of those groups where you ask a question and somebody says, oh, what are you asking that for? Don't you know anything? No, positively discouraged, that kind of behaviour. And it's growing nicely, the Facebook group. And by the way, if you're in it and you want to suggest to a photographer friend of yours, you are a star of the highest order, because that's a nice way to spread word about the inspirational speakers and guests that we have on the show. Of course, if they're in the Facebook group, they might think, what's this here show? What's Photography Daily all about then? So let's have a look at some posts. Nanto Sealands posted in the group, start of the week actually, a simple picture of his grand's hand. And we've often talked, haven't we, about the power of pictures of hands, haven't we? And Nanto wrote, well, he starts it actually with a subject that's just hands. On Tuesday, the 6th of April, 2021, my gran passed away at 96 years of age. I was lucky enough to be able to spend the last week with her after more than a year of absence due to COVID lockdowns. Everyone spent the week holding her hand and reminiscing about our amazing family. It was a time mixed with both joy and sadness. In the end, Gran had only one wish: to be with her beloved husband Sandy, where they're going to meet again at Ipinichi Creek. Oh, what a wonderful sounding place, Ipinichi Creek. Oh, Nanto, I tell you what, that picture of your Nan's hand and the words that you wrote with it, it's the perfect portrait, it really is. And it goes along with all those other... We talked about hands, I think last week we talked about them with Ali Hunter, didn't we? We've talked about them a few times now. Elias Camaratos, about a month, possibly 2 months back now, talking about the pictures he took of his late father's hands. So yes, bravo, wonderful portrait and a fitting tribute to your dear Gran. And we're sorry to hear of your loss as well. Chris Rogowski popped up a superb monochrome of a spider's web during the week as well. Not a spider in sight, but the web just sat there glistening with Chris's words. A spider's web is just a temporary thumbprint and home from nature. Nothing lasts forever, everything fades away, even if it takes a long time. Everything is temporary. My word, the poetry, really. This is what you're missing by not being a member, you see. Thoughtful prose. Fantastic, Chris. But he had another post that I spotted, actually, from, you were out on a walk, weren't you? And he'd mentioned the time, 5:45 a.m., 32 degrees F. What's that in centigrade? minus 84. I don't know. Winter will not let go, he says. We have frost advisories tonight. One human, which is him, 4.5 miles of a walk, tons of blue jays, quite a few deer, no black bears. Damn, he says in brackets. I was hoping to see one. You are kidding, aren't you? Hoping to see a black bear? Are you mad? God, I'd have been running in the other direction, Chris. There was a guy many years ago, wasn't there, called Troy Hurtubise, maybe. Yes, who invented a bear-proof suit. He became quite the celebrity for a while, didn't he? I had to look up Wiki to find a little bit more about him, but Troy James Hurtubise was a Canadian inventor and conservationist, noted for self-testing his often bizarre creations. These inventions included various ray generators, fire paste. What would fire paste have been? Sounds serious. The Ursus personal armor suit and the Trojan ballistics suit of armor. But he made up this suit. I don't know if it was one of the aforementioned suits of armor, but he had this suit, and I saw a couple of YouTube films where people were essentially, he invited them to attack him with anything really, baseball bats, iron bars, and just smack him with these, with whatever they could find to show how this suit could be bear-proof. It was extraordinary. Unfortunately, he passed away too, but so there is no more Troy Hurtubise with his incredibly odd suits and inventions, but he was quite the character. Talking of characters, do you remember David Yarrow in episode 203? While we're talking about bears, he was talking about the dangers of being out with bears. Although he kind of downplayed it a bit. If you watch the videos of David Yarrow, the fine art photographer, with bears all around him, one in front of him, one that he didn't see approaching from behind, he played it down. He's certainly a man who's used to photographing animals that have a bit of a nasty bite. Let's hear a bit of David for inspiration, in case you should ever be out on a walk with Chris Rogowski, who seems keen to take you into black bear country.
The whole Jeopardy thing is embellished. And I have 2 kids. I'm not a big, tough Bear's Grill type guy. There are 2 types of bear encounters, right? There's a bear encounter that is in the woods in the spring or the autumn where it's unexpected. You turn around a corner and there's a big bear in the woods that might not have eaten, that might be tired, might be shocked by human presence. I would never, ever even consider remotely doing that, or having the possibility of that happening. Every bear encounter I have is in the fishing season, where they're eating so many fish that they don't give a damn about you, and they know your presence, that you're not surprising them. So that moment there, there's one thing you must do is you must never run.
No.
Because if you run, they'll think it's a game.
But the polar bear you were face to face with, weren't you? And actually, I think you've rightly said you're probably one of the only photographers in the world who's had some sort of reflective selfie with a polar bear. You are that close. And now knowing that you like to work with short focal length lenses, I can't imagine you were that far away.
I was on a 58. But I was on a tiny fishing boat.
Yeah.
And it's all about working with the best guides. And I was working with the lead guide up there. And he's never known of a polar bear from land up there to try and jump from his land position over steel bars to try and get into a boat. And he's also managing the engine, so that if any stage it looks like his behavior was...
He's off.
And the bear's mother was behind him, so the bear was never going to leave his mother. So I'm okay with that. You know, I run into some criticism from mostly wildlife photographers that some of my positioning might leave either myself or the animal in danger. And the truth is, whilst I know that most of their criticisms are well-founded in terms that, well, they're honest, the reality is that we would never, and my guides would never ever put anything in danger. The only animal I'm particularly careful with are hippos.
Although I've heard you say that tigers are probably the most dangerous.
I think they are, but you never dream of getting out of the car.
David Yarrow from episode 203. I'm going to put you straight in my pocket. I need to get a picture of the sky. Do you remember that we talk about looking up quite often? Put you in my pocket. It's quite a sort of dull, overcast, nothingy day, but there's still a story in that, isn't there, really? That's the day we came out for a walk. Let's look towards the top of these really tall... Are they pines? Oh, here we go. Tree recognition problems again. 250 ISO. F16, I think. Yeah. Just take you out of the pocket. It's always a description of the day, isn't it? It may not be the most... I mean, it's a featureless sky. But we've been doing a bit of work of late on the Instagram, which is photography.daily.podcast. If you haven't been there yet, the grid is... I wanted to do something that was a bit creative with a grid. So I invited you, and you're still invited, to send me really gorgeous, beautiful, get lost in the contrast, black and white pictures. Oh, bit of mud. And in between, it's like a checkerboard effect, really. In between these pictures, we've got some what's called headliners. It's been made through a software from a company called Headliner, which are short videos that feature a sound excerpt from an episode, and a suggestion to go listen. You can't actually link individually, can you, to pages, which is a great shame. Unless you have, you can't actually do a swipe up until you have, 10,000 subscribers now. So at least it has the artwork to tell you the number, etc. But it's a nice checkerboard effect. So if you feel like joining in and sending yours, I'd love to hear from you. Send them to studio@photographydaily.show. Studio@photographydaily.show. 1,500 by 1,500 or 2,000 by 2,000 will be absolutely superb. I'm not going through that that huge amount of mud there. Hang on, it's just step over a tree that's fallen either fallen or they're doing some work here. So here's one from Dennis Linden, who's been out walking and finding COVID litter. Yeah. Do you know, just a short while back there along the path, I didn't make a picture of it. I didn't think you'd appreciate it, but all the same, it does fit in with what Dennis Linden's talking about. COVID litter. Hello, Neil. Loving the whole show. You've clearly put a lot of effort into this and deserve credit. Well, thank you, Dennis. Thank you very much indeed. I most especially enjoy listening to your show on my walks around my neighbourhood. For the past year, I've been stumbling upon something which just does not belong around schoolyards, sidewalks and paths. I remember walking to the schoolyard as a kid of a Saturday morning to play road hockey, and we'd find joints, discarded underwear and condom wrappers out back. So what, pray, are the kids these days up to? Unmasking, he says. Unmasking, that's what. And Dennis has sent along some of his Photowalk pictures. Talk about, I mean, there's masks. It is literally just masks, isn't it? A litter. Well, some of the masks are quite nice. These are clearly ones that people have made or they bought. They've got slogans on them. They're not just like the surgical ones, which really drives me mad, Dennis, when people just cast those aside like they're going to rot. It's just sort of, yeah, it's 2020, 2021 COVID litter, isn't it? Hate it. I hope that just doesn't become it's going to, isn't it, for a while, a sort of legacy of this period. Yeah, there's, I don't know if is it humour? I don't know. But anyway, I've put some of those pictures up from Dennis. You'll find them on the show page today. And of course, all the pictures that we talk about and the photographers that feature in the show today, who've sent in some pictures, they'll be on the show page, which is linked to, of course, through the app. I feel I'm getting closer to that road. Can you hear that? Let me be quiet for a second. We're definitely getting closer. I purposely tried to drive away from the road. Some pictures and a story from Jens Roder. Hello, Neil. Update from my own Photowalk. I'm still doing the photographic ping pong with my mate Klaus. Yes. Back in the winter, which doesn't seem to have gone, Jens. Back in the winter, during the war, back in the winter, we were talking about this ping pong thing, weren't we? Where you make a photo and your friend or whoever's playing this photographic ping pong picks up that photo and the theme of it and returns one, and then it sort of changes a little bit as it goes along, doesn't it? It sort of develops, the story develops, and you end up making a series of fabulous pictures. Ping pong. I think it's a great idea. I think I feel it's too late to start this year. I might. Do you want to play ping pong? Anybody? Next year when we start in January? Anybody want it? We could have a ping pong club, couldn't we? Set yourself some more work. Yeah, I know. Today, says Jens, it's my turn to deliver something in the ping pong game. I got the most incredible sunset from Klaus yesterday, shot over the sea west of Denmark. One can almost spot Scotland on the other side. No, surely not. You'd have to have good eyesight. Now, I'm not a morning person, so getting a sunrise is out of the question, and tonight it will be cloudy, so I decided to go for water as today's subject. So I popped in my trusty Jabra headset and set off for Mosso, one of the larger lakes in Denmark, which doesn't count for much compared to the rest of the world, he says. I don't know, what's it relative to? But it's a nice area and it's close to where I live. Sounds a perfect place to go photo walking. Today was not a day for the X Pro 1. I decided to go with the XT20 and my 55-200 zoom. My plan was to use Acros film simulation to get some crisp black and white shots, and I did of course end up shooting in colour. That's always best laid plans, eh? Best laid plans. At present, life is presenting me with a lot of other interesting things to do, so photography often has to take a bit of a backseat, but it did feel good to spend a few hours outside with a camera today. And yes, a cup of coffee and a piece of cake snuck into the car with me, and glad to hear it. I've actually been really careful about my diet of late, so I've not been taking my Garibaldi's out. Right, this is my 7th day booze-free, Neil. Is this something you're trying to tell us? No, it's not. I just thought I wanted to lose a bit of this COVID weight. When I put those trousers on the other week for the funeral I was photographing, they were a tad on the tight side. When I say a tad on the tight side, I was truly uncomfortable. I hope nobody really noticed that my top button wasn't done up. I'm sure they had other things to think about. So yeah, Jens, I'm being a bit careful with me Garibaldi's this week. And there was plenty of time, he says, to sit by the water and ponder the questions about life, the universe and everything, while sipping coffee and eating said cake. Oh, marvellous. Kind regards, Jens Roder. Sounds fantastic. Now that is the way to spend photographic time, isn't it? Here's one from our good friend Andy Clark. Hello, Andy. How are you? Lovely to hear from you as always. If you want to send an email into the show, then send it to studio@photographydaily.show, studio@photographydaily.show. It's always a joy to hear from you. And if you're sending pictures in to be included on the show page so that we can take part in your photo walks as well, because after all, that's what this is about. It's just you and me with my cameras and me with my microphone, having a chat, feeding back about stuff that you've heard and the photography projects that you're working on, and sharing some of those pictures that you make as well. So yes, send those in, 2,000 pixels wide please, to studio@photographydaily.show. So from Andy, yes Andy, I'm about to introduce you, by the way, to one of the best pieces of just simple cinematography and story experiences that I've had, well, certainly this year, possibly even longer. And Andy, by the sounds of it, has too now. Hello, Neil. On your other podcast with that Mullins, you mentioned the documentary My Octopus Teacher, which I had to look up on Netflix. And wow, what an hour and 25 minutes that was. I found it fascinating, the way that the presenters and the octopus grew, or the bond grew, and how amazingly intelligent the octopus was. I read something about it actually. We in the film, the presenter, and I'll mention his name in a moment, simply calls the octopus she does this and she did that. And he was asked why he didn't, in his year-long bond and relationship with this octopus, why he didn't call the octopus a name. And he was very quick with a reply. He said it wasn't a pet, it was a free spirit in the ocean, so giving it a name wasn't appropriate. I thought, yeah, how right. How very right. And he says, yeah, the way it can quickly adapt and overcome the various situations it found itself in, from adapting how it hunts lobster to being hunted by the sharks. How does a mollusk come up with the idea of picking up rocks and shells to disguise and protect itself? Ingenious. And then riding on the shark's back so it can't find it. That was a very funny moment, wasn't it? Wow. I have to say I have a whole new appreciation for octopuses. Or is it octopi? I don't know. On top of that, the whole documentary wonderfully shot. Just brilliant in the way that he draws you in for the emotional ride that he goes on. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's a Netflix special. It's called My Octopus Teacher. We got told about it by some friends, and it was kind of on the list. Yeah, we'll get round to that. And then a couple of Sundays ago, I was putting up a bookshelf. Actually, Sam was making the bookshelf. There was me about to claim that I was making and putting up a bookshelf when she did the lion's share of the work, to be fair. And I sat with Thomas, who came in, and he was on his phone, going through Instagram, looking at trains, because that's what he loves, as you know. And we started watching this. We put this on, and Thomas was absolutely enthralled by it. He was glued to it. It was fantastic. And it features a diver called Craig Foster, who's actually a very experienced filmmaker. And I think he came to a stage where, I just think he got burnout. And he couldn't do it anymore. That was effectively it. And he returned home to South Africa, and he would swim in the kelp forest just off the coast where he lived. A gorgeous part of the world to live in. And he comes across this octopus one day, and then, Watch the film. Watch the documentary, a docu-film. It's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. And then he says today, says Andy, with Charlie Phillips and his Jamaican roots, it all ties in with some memories and pictures. I love the way you can tie these things in. You've become scriptwriters, you lot. His pictures, by the way, Andy's pictures are going to be on they will be, I think, officially the first non-Photowalk ones that we featured on the show page, but for very good reason. Andy says, I had to look back into my photo library to find a few shots I took when my wife and I were lucky enough to go to Jamaica on our honeymoon in 2015. We loved the place and the genuinely warm and friendly people there. I thought I'd share some of my pictures I took with the 13 megapixel Nikon Coolpix S32 camera I bought as a bit of a last-minute camera for taking a few underwater pictures. I tell you what, Andy, it's an airport purchase, was it? I don't know whether it was or not, but usually those kind of cameras, that kind of kit, is airport purchase stuff, isn't it? I can't avoid a Dixon's worldwide airport purchase. I'm pretty sure that's how we ended up with we had two underwater cameras, and they were both Fujifilm ones, I think. Yeah, I'm sure they were. They were definitely airport purchases. You know, when you're sat there, do you know what we need, darling? We need an underwater camera. Where will we get one of those from? Dixon's Worldwide or Dixon's International, whatever it's called in the airports. Yeah, while you're in there, go get a nose hair trimmer. Oh, yeah, we need one of those as well. So anyway, Andy says we both went snorkeling off the coast of Bloody Bay in Jamaica, and later on I was lucky enough to go out further for a proper scuba dive. Unfortunately, my little Coolpix camera wouldn't have taken the water pressure. I don't think they're very good under 5 meters, are they? Can they go down to 10? Not quite sure. So I had to leave it behind, which I'm gutted about, as we saw lots of lionfish and a couple of small sharks amongst the other wonderful marine life down there. Anyway, here's a few pics on that dive. It's official. Andy, announcement. You have been on the first official photo dive. I'm not sure we can form a whole new episode of the week on this one. In fact, we definitely can't, but you've got the first. P.S. Have you seen the series Tales by Light on Netflix? It's kind of a Netflix share moment, I think. No, I haven't, but Andy says check it out because it's all behind the scenes with different photographers, which sounds right up my street. It really does. Let's play a little from the episode with Charlie Phillips, shall we? From Wednesday. Now, Charlie, he came across from Jamaica with his family, late 50s, and he ended up making these extraordinary black and white documentary pictures of London in Notting Hill and surrounding areas. And then he joined the marches, the CND marches, and the various labour marches that there were. And then he sort of battled with being recognised, did Charlie Phillips, which is incredibly unfair when you look at the body of work and the historical significance and importance that work has. So I got in touch with Charlie and I said, I'd love to interview you. Miss Anne Harriman, former guest, has suggested that I go sit with Charlie as well. And a few other people have mentioned Charlie to me of late. And I got in touch with Charlie, and initially I thought he wasn't interested at all because he didn't respond to any of my messages. Until one of his volunteers actually got in touch with me and said, look, he doesn't do email. Phone him. Old school style. So that's what I did. Phoned up Charlie and he said, of course, but come to my allotment on a Saturday. And that's exactly what I did to make this particular episode with Charlie Phillips, which was on Wednesday. Let's play you just a snippet from that show, shall we?
In about 1968, there was a big student uprising in Europe, and there was another uprising in Paris. So I thought I'd go to Paris for a day or two to take some photographs of the student uprising in Paris, yeah? Action Directe, that's what they used to call Action Directe. Yeah? I went over to Paris, hanging around with students and living in communes. What happened, I always remember outside the Gare du Nord, I saw the police kicked out of the student and like blood was everywhere, and I just panicked and I just hopped and left, not even packed my bags properly, but I just thought I'd get out of Paris. Anyway, I was traveling with a rucksack and I hitchhiked out of Paris and spent a few weeks down in Marseille, Jean Lapin, you know, I didn't take much photograph, but I ended up in Hitchcock. I didn't even know where I was going, so I ended up in Rome. Yeah,
As you do.
June La Dolce Vita, you know. So I was staying in a youth hostel.
But this is where you started to hang out with the paparazzi.
This is 1968. They were just finished making the film Cleopatra, and I was outside Piazza di Spagna one morning, and I saw all these people running off. I think it was Elizabeth Taylor or Marcella Mastroianni. So I didn't know what was happening. I didn't even know what a paparazzi was. So I joined in and started taking photographs.
Just with the camera that you had with you. That wasn't the same one as you'd had all those years, though, was it?
It was, I went up market and got a Petri for £35. Because I used to take a lot of photographs of parties, and you know, and they'd give me 5 shillings. I don't know, I just didn't have enough money to come back to England. I didn't have no one to turn, so I ended up in Rome in a commune. People took sympathy on me. Part of the student uprising as well, were hanged around it. But in the same time, to sort of survive, I used to hang around Piazza di Spagna, Via Condotti, and there used to be a famous cafe called Cafe El Greco, and you just hang around there. You'd see some celebrity passing by. So in those days, you'd see people like Peter O'Toole and John Philip Law, Rod Steiger, just to be in this area, to be seen. Because it's us paparazzi who's built the career of lots of actors and actresses. Yeah, but now we get abused. It's not the same. Years ago, they used to love you, taking up, they tell you, go away, to carry on.
Charlie Phillips, the amazing Charlie Phillips. Friday Photo Walk, me with my camera, you with your camera, and some earbuds, listening to those that have written into the show, and of course sharing some pictures, making some pictures. The two of us, there's a little bench here. Just want to get a picture of it. A lonely bench in the middle of nowhere. Hold on, put it in my pocket. And actually, there's a wonderful tree next to it that was burned. It looks like it was felled by lightning, and then it's been cleaned up. But in terms of the wood that fell's been taken away. Let's take it. The picture of the bench first. Then I'm going to get this tree. What am I on? 1/2 ISO. I'm sticking at 250 today. Drop back F8 I think. Now let me try and isolate this tree a bit more than that. So where are we? 1000th F28. I'm on my 28mm Yashica lens on the X Pro 1 this week, working very manually. There's quite a lot of light behind the tree, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to isolate it quite like I wanted to. We'll see though. We'll see. Where were we? Get sidetracked so easily. Here's one I've been meaning to mention for a while, from Kian Balak. Nice to hear from you, Kian, and hope to hear from you more often after this. Hi Neil, September 2020 I decided to enroll for a distance learning degree in photography. As like a lot of photographers, I was only able to shoot personal images, and I wanted to channel that into something more meaningful. That's a reason a lot of people take up. You're absolutely right. I've been thinking about doing something myself with all this spare time I have. But yeah, I think that sort of challenge of something more formal, if you like, is a good thing for photographers. It really is. It makes us think about photography in a different way. Different challenges, unique perspectives. Tutors that have often a world of experience, and those around you that you, I suppose if it's distance, then no, you're not necessarily sitting amongst your peers and discussing. I don't know, did you have some sort of forum where you could talk with them as well? You probably did. Lockdown walks, he said, became a fixture of life for a while, but hill walking has been a hobby of mine for many years, and was one of the routes into photography for me. So photo walks are not a new thing for me. I've been walking around my local area with my camera for over 10 years, but I've started to explore different routes and paths since the pandemic restrictions came in, to try and keep things fresh. I tell you what though, thank God they're lifting, eh? We are but days away from quite a big next step in England. I know you have a slightly different roadmap where you are, Kian, but generally it's all coming together, isn't it?
I'm a little bit concerned about new Oh, don't talk about them, Neil. Think about the now, not about what might happen. Good point. The photographic exercises and assignments required by my degree course have meant that I've really had to start thinking of new ways to approach scenes and subjects that I've been photographing actually for years. Initially, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to come up with adequate responses to the assignments. First assignment was My Square Mile, which is inspired by this. It's inspired actually by a Welsh phrase. And Cian, I did my best. I looked it up, and I just couldn't find the pronunciation that was the same twice, and the one on Google was dreadful. So I tell you, well, there'll be a resolution for this, which I'll make clear in a moment's time. The square mile refers to the place where you feel that you belong, which is wonderful and poetic, isn't it? Now I'm completely lost. Am I going left or right here? Oh, I told you I should have done. What 3 words? Probably this way. Where were we? Yes, where you feel you belong. I've lived, says Cian, in my current house in Blantyre for almost 20 years, which is far longer than I've lived in any one place in my entire life. It's definitely where I feel most at home. The restrictions imposed by the various COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns have given this some extra significance really in the last year. I've been forced to stay within my square mile, and as such, much photography practice has been entirely limited to my home area. Now, there is an essay. This is an essay actually that Cian wrote, and I mean that in the nicest way. I don't mean it's just a long email, Cian. I mean that you really put some thought and some work into what you sent in about the course that you went on, the work that you produced, those that inspired you. I mean, your work, the work that you produced, Cian, is stunning. And he goes on in this piece to talk about the project and some John Blakemore-inspired pictures, which I'm going to link to on today's show notes. I'm going to link you to, actually what I'm going to do is link you to his entire photo essay. We have a section on the website called Photo Essays, and I thought this, Cian, really deserved to be featured as a photo essay, so that's what I'm going to do. So I will put some of the pictures today from your square mile walks that you've been doing, but I'll put the whole piece on the photo essay so that you can read and see exactly what Cian's been up to in this course. And if it inspires you to think, wow, do you know what, that looks fantastic, I'd like to go on a photographic course, then, well, it'll be nice to see the kind of work that's been going on. So thank you, Cian. And as I said, yeah, don't be a stranger. Send more stuff in, definitely. A little mention for Tim Binder, a most certain and definite friend of this show here, for the pictures that he sent in of Louisville, Kentucky. There is a picture that you'll see. I've definitely gone the right way, because look, I've got to step over this tree again to avoid that huge puddle. He sent in a picture as Tim that's upside down. So when you look at the collection that I've put on the show notes, you'll think, hang on, is Neil gone mad? That picture's most certainly upside down. And there's a title to it called Why, and I've linked on the show page today to that Why, so that you can go and see the article that Tim wrote, because he writes some fabulous blog articles about the pictures that he makes while he's out on his photo walks. So you can go and see that. But there's also some great pictures of the city. Nice sort of good, strong, you know my soft spot for them, Tim. Strong, contrasty, nice, strong black and whites. Can I use strong any more times? I did have to go and look up Louisville just to check on my history, because I'm not so up on Louisville history. And here's what I found. The city's known as the home of the boxer, Muhammad Ali. Didn't know that. The Kentucky Derby. I did know that. KFC. Oh, I did not know that. Well, I should have known that, shouldn't I? The chicken. The University of Louisville and its Cardinals. Louisville Slugger baseball bats. And 3 of Kentucky's 6 Fortune 500 companies. And there we go. There's your quick visit to Louisville. Actually, Louisville, there's so many different ways to pronounce it, aren't there? Some people say Louisville, which I know is not the understood and preferred method. Most people say Louisville, but if you're local, you say Louisville. Not Louisville, not Louisville, Louisville. Bit like Bristolians in this country. They don't say Bristol, they say Brizzle. Come to Brizzle. Right, not so much last mail of the week time, but last thought of the week time. Still has to be sung, obviously. The thoughts are about the wonderful Barry Butler from Chicago, who featured on Monday's episode 226, Landscape Journalism. Fabulous pictures that Barry makes. He gets up for pretty much every sunrise, pretty much every sunset, and makes these gorgeous photographs of the city. Sometimes they're more urban than other times. And again, you can see the links and hear the episode if you go to the website, episode 226, or of course on all popular podcast apps. Eric Delorme said Barry sounds like a wonderful guy to sit and have a beer with, maybe even a slice of deep dish pie too. Oh, now you're talking my language. Deep dish pie, you can put anything in deep dish pie, can't you? Chicago is one of the most photogenic cities in North America, he says. Dare I say nicer than New York? Oh, I wouldn't say that. We've got quite a few listeners around that area. He didn't mean that. If you have any interest in architecture, gritty street scenes, and anything in between, a trip to Chicago will never disappoint, says Eric. Craig Hughes, I love this episode, Neil, and the photography is inspiring. Barry has such great energy. He did. He was definitely one of the most energetic guests that I've spoken to. Well, they're all energetic in their own ways, obviously, but I mean, Barry was... I don't want to use the word infectious these days. God, it's the kind of words you don't use any longer. He was enthusiastic, leave it at that. Catherine Cunningham loved the energy, loved the passion, the dedication of Barry to his craft and city. You know what I loved most? So thank you, Catherine, thank you, Craig, thank you, Eric, and a whole host of other people that did drop some thoughts and comments on the website and also on the Facebook page. But do you know what I love most? Just how, I don't know, plain down to earth and generous that Barry is in spirit. The generosity of explaining a few secrets like the lightning shots as well. I appreciated that. And his stories about Ireland and he when we parted, I always say this, I mean it to all guests. I say, I really do hope that we meet up one day. But to Barry, I think, yes. What did Eric call it? I'd like to sit there with Barry by the waterside there and have a slice of deep dish pie. Eric, you're invited as well. Let's play some from Monday's episode then, shall we?
You know, and this is the God's honest truth. I shoot for me. So if someone likes it, and it doesn't matter if it's the photography in Ireland or Iceland or Yosemite or Chicago, if someone likes it, hey, I feel blessed. Yeah. But if they don't, it's okay. I liked it. As a matter of fact, I'm always amazed at times, especially I post daily, and I'll do a tremendous amount of planning on a shot, and I get it perfect. And if I measured that shot based on likes, I would probably be disappointed, because there are times where I decided to just turn my head. I'm like, oh wow, look at that, boom, 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 boom. And people are going gaga over a shot that I really just instinctively decided to change my composition or whatever, and not what I originally had planned. So and what's funny, I have a lot of discussions with camera clubs, students at schools. And one of the things that I keep on reminding them is that whatever artistic thing that you want to do, make sure that you do it that you love, and not because other people love what you do.
The amazing Barry Butler with some wise words. And our two guests next week have wise words and interesting stories to share. Monday's guest I've spoken to before on my other podcast with Kev Mullins, the Fujicast. You know the one. Well, Monday I've invited Cara Mew back to talk about her photography for a new interview, as I wanted to share the story of somebody who's radically changed the way they perceive their business is going to be shaped as we come out of lockdown. Plus, we get candid about Insta.
I absolutely hate the treadmill of Insta, where you always need to look busy and you always need to be making and you need to post pictures at a set time, because that's how Instagram works, to get the most likes and followers, and artists don't work like that.
Then on Wednesday, photojournalist for hire Rick Findler talks about finding stories abroad, selling your stories, hitting, missing, and the risks you take.
The risk of running into either a Taliban checkpoint or a militia or just some bandits that wanted to rob you and things is quite high, but as long as you don't run into those sorts of things, then you're fine. And we were lucky enough to get back to Kabul and back in time for me to catch my flight to back to England.
That does not sound like another day at the office, as you're about to find out on Wednesday. And that's it for today. Keep sending your questions or feedback to studio@photographydaily.show so that I can feature you in the mailbag edition, which are these Friday photo walks. Music in the show was from artlist.io. For me, they bring the texture and professional flavour to the show. So if you make films, slideshows and podcasts, you can, like we do, subscribe to their service. And if you do that from the menu on our website, photographydaily.show, they send us a little love in return. I look forward to photographing with you, hearing from you and talking with you on Monday.
Car,
Yes?
you sound apparently a bit like Marvin, the paranoid android from Hitchhikers. That's what they've been saying in the Facebook group.
Really? Well, I'll take that as a compliment.
Why?
Well, he has the brain the size of a planet, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah, he did, didn't he? Do you remember the line? Brain the size of a planet, and they've got me...
Parking cars. Yeah, I know. Restaurant at the end of the universe, I think you'll find.
Ooh, you're quite the expert, aren't you? Okay. Quick fire round. Who wrote Hitchhiker?
Douglas Adams.
Who is the last known surviving man of Earth?
Arthur Dent.
Why was Earth destroyed?
To make way for a new hyperspace bypass.
Oh, you are good.
Photography Daily is a Loading Zone production.